What an exciting day, guys. Today we are doing the last part of section 5-4. So you can title your notes 5-4 day 4. Wow, that was terrible. And today we're doing solving. And I'm just going to go between cursive and print. And today is April 22nd, I think, because I'm making this on April 20th. Yes. Okay. So it's going to be a quick video. I'm just going to do one example and a you try. This is very similar to what we did back in chapter 5a with solving. So, given cosine of x plus pi minus sine of x plus pi equals 0, solve for x given that x is an element between 0 and 2 pi with hard brackets. So you're going to look at this problem and see what you can do. And when we look at the left side, we have the cosine sum identity. So we can rewrite this as cosine of x times cosine of pi minus sine of x times sine of pi. And then when we look at this side, sorry, trying to pick a color, we've got the sum for sine. Now, you have to be careful because of this subtraction symbol. So this is minus, and then I recommend putting this all in parentheses so you don't make a silly mistake. And then we can apply our sum identity. So this is going to be sine of x times cosine of pi plus cosine of x, times sine of pi, close my parentheses, and that equals 0. And so I'm trying to solve for x. So I am going to distribute the negative next, and then combine some like terms. So this is still going to be cosine of x, cosine of pi, minus sine of x, sine of pi. Listen to what I said, not what I wrote. And then I'm going to distribute this negative. So then it's minus sine of x times cosine of pi minus cosine of x sine of pi equals 0. Now you could have done this next part in like halfway in the last step, but I like to do it all at once. But what we're going to do now is solve the parts that are trig or things on the unit circle. So we know cosine of pi and sine of pi and cosine of pi and sine of pi. So cosine of pi is -1, so this will be negative cosine of x. Sine of pi is 0. So to show a little bit of extra work, this is going to be 0 times sine of x minus cosine of pi. So this is technically negative sine of x. And I'm talking about just this part, so I'm bringing down the negative. And then we have minus, and sine of pi is 0, so this is 0 times cosine of x, and that's going to equal 0. Now, some of you would be able to simplify this sooner, but let's be honest, we're all a little rusty after quite a few weeks of no school. And most of you probably didn't do the review. Anyways, now we can simplify. So, this is negative cosine of x. And this is going to cancel and be 0. And then a negative times negative is a positive, so that's going to be plus sine of x. And this is going to become 0, so that just equals 0. Now, you could actually do this a slightly different way than maybe what you're used to. And what I'm going to do is add cosine of x to both sides. So I have sine of x equals cosine of x. And believe it or not, you can just stop here and go, okay, where on the unit circle is sine of x equivalent to cosine of x? Hopefully, you're thinking of pi over 4. Because in the first quadrant, at pi over 4, it's both root 2 over 2 and root 2 over 2. And because the range for x is between 0 and 2 pi, that means that we're also going to have the same value at 5 pi over 4. And we are done. So now, I'd like you guys to do a U try. And I'm going to give you cosine of pi over 3 plus x plus cosine of pi over 3 minus x equals root 3 over 2 when x is an element between 0 and 2 pi. So please pause your video, do this problem on your own, and when you have finished, you can hit play and I'll go over the rest of the problem. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is my sum identity for cosine. So this can be rewritten as cosine of pi over 3 times cosine of x minus sine of pi over 3 sine of x. So I'll do some color coding, that's this part. Then I'll do orange. For this side, it's going to be plus cosine of pi over 3 times cosine of x plus sine of pi over 3 sine of x. And that's going to equal root 3 over 2. So this problem's a little bit different because we have a plus sign in between the two. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine, I'm going to use the unit circle first. So cosine of pi over 3 is 1/2. So I have 1/2 times cosine of x minus sine of pi over 3 is root 3 over 2. Hopefully you guys still remember your unit circle. Plus, now I'm getting to the right side, cosine of pi over 3 is 1/2 times cosine of x. Sine of pi over 3 is root 3 over 2. And then I'm going to bring down my right side, which is root 3 over 2. Now is when I'm going to want to combine like terms. So if we look, we have a negative root 3 over 2 sine of x and a positive root 3 over 2 sine of x. So if I add those two, they're going to cancel. And 1/2 plus 1/2 is 1. So on the left side, I'm left with cosine of x equals the square root of 3 over 2. And when on the unit circle, what values of x will give us cosine of x equaling root 3 over 2? And remember, they have to be between 0 and 2 pi. So that is two values. At pi over 6, we'll get root 3 over 2 for cosine, and 11 pi over 6. And that's it. So you're done. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or come to Flex Time on Thursday.